So here are the things that don't exist or are not what they say they are. The lipid bilayer cell membrane, ribosomes, blood-brain barrier, endoplasmic reticulum, Golgi apparatus. There are no receptors, ACE2 receptors, opiate on cell membranes. There's no synapses and nerves. There's no neurotransmitters, lysosomes, holes in nucleus. There's no immune system. They made that up to convince you there's viruses. There's no such thing as autoimmune disease. DNA is not the mechanism of heredity. The proteins are not coded for by genes. And the DNA is not even identical in all the cells of the body. There's no cristae in mitochondria, and I jokingly put in the government and associated foundations care about your well-being, and that's a myth. And the ability to understand logic or reasoning is intact in most human beings. I don't know about that either. So at the end of the day, what can you actually see? So here is a best we can say a cell. And what you see is a thin membrane. You see organized water, that's the cytoplasm. You see a nucleus, which is round. And then you see little black dots, which are actually mitochondria in the cytoplasm. So this is this represents a spherical or oblong circular shape that has a thin membrane. Like when you make Jell-O, you could say Jell-O doesn't really have a membrane, but it has a thickened outside.
Right.
And it has a dome-shaped interior called a nucleus. And that's it. That's all you can demonstrate is real in a mostly unmanipulated tissue. You can take live tissue out of somebody, and this is what you'll see.
And this is under a light microscope, correct?
Under a light microscope,
right?
Even a dark field, so you're not even messing with light.
Right. You're simply taking it right from somebody, so you're already removing from the body, but immediately putting it into whatever.
Right.
And this is what the visual is.
Yes.
Not a representation, not an AI generated picture.
Right. This is what you see. So I think and Hillman also thinks this is all there is. And so you have to account for how do you make proteins. And here I would use this image of water knows how to make proteins if you give it information. And this is Veda Austin's pictures, a friend of mine. I don't know if you've seen these, but
yeah, I've had her on.
Yeah, right. So she's demonstrating that water knows how to make stuff. Now, this is an image in a petri dish. I could imagine that if you had amino acids in a living system, the information downloaded into the water would make proteins. That's the code. The code is the memory of the water. So you can see this too. And these are just, other people saying the same thing. Water is, a crystalline medium that's interior of every cell. This geneticist who I knew, Sven Gorky, said it's all about the water in the cells. Marcel Vogel, who knew more about crystals than anybody, said we're basically a liquid crystal, a mesophase that's structured with the mind and thought.
Yep.
So, this is also showing that you can tell the difference in a cancer cell. The coherence of the water changes, and that's what you pick up on an MRI. So actually, modern medicine uses changes in water to diagnose cancer. And then they turn around and say it doesn't have anything to do with your water, even though that's what they're using to diagnose it in an image.
Right.
And this also comes from, various sort of sacred texts, Jesus and Genesis and the Quran and the Vedas. They all say the same thing. We're made of water with information coming in.
Yep.
So
absolutely.
The system is basically, it's like a radio. The radio has a structure. That is the cytoplasm. The water crystal is the radio. And then the radio has an antenna, and then it has capacitors that download the information. And the information is not in the radio, right? You cannot find the source of the music by dissecting the radio, even if you got it atom by atom. Because the source of the music is the radio station and the radio waves. And the radio itself is only picking up the signal. And I would contend that that's exactly what we are. We're essentially the download for the signal from the outside. And the signal is thoughts and feelings and sunlight and earth energy and cats and other living things and children and you name it. And that's what creates the structure. Now, the interesting thing about that is if you look at things like this is the Taj Mahal, made hundreds of years ago by people supposedly with donkey carts.
Right.
I don't know about you, but that looks pretty tricky to make if you got no tools and only a donkey cart. I don't really think you could do that, but it's the same system of antenna, dome, that's the nucleus. We're not sure what the antenna is, maybe some copper substance, maybe DNA, which is a spiral, not a double helix. So it may be functioning like an antenna. And then it gets downloaded and accentuated with these bar magnet horseshoe-shaped things, downloaded into the water to create something. And this is basically the structure of the old world. And you see the Vatican, same thing, antenna, dome, capacitors downloaded into water. You see it in St. Petersburg. You don't see the water. You see it here, but they got rid of the antenna. So you see it everywhere. And these may have been like energy devices. You can see it here. Interestingly, this was made supposedly before anybody could see from above. If you think about how you would dig this with shovels, and you can't see anything from above because you don't have airplanes or helicopters. Like, I'm not sure I'm convinced that you could do that.
I know there's people who definitely do more research on some of the fallacies of, thinking that things are old world technology. But to the same token, a lot of those who still kind of debunk that will also say very well that there are certain locations and architectures that are still profound enough where there's definitely something going on. And I'm with you 100%. The amount of accuracy and precision that comes with a lot of these locations is profound for sure. And you can see it right here. For those listening, we're looking at a star fort, and it's a perfect geometrical pattern of a pentagon type, almost looks like a snowflake.
So there's the interesting thing about this, and this obviously doesn't prove anything, but there's this energy systems, which is what we are fundamentally, and it's mirrored in the world if you know how to look. And it's not got anything to do with ribosomes and lysosomes and Golgi apparatus and all this make-believe stuff. And once you see that, you could say, well, what difference does it make? You can see every reason we get sick or get well. All these detox diets, the Gerson diets, fasting, cleaning your gel. Why do we have fevers? Melt the gel so it can get rid of stuff. Why does it, EMF poisoning make you sick? Because that's weird input coming from the outside. Why does having the right thoughts make you better, or using vortices, etc.? Because that's the system that we're working with. So once you see the system, everything starts to make sense. You can use acupuncture to change the energy pattern. and that changes what the water will have experienced as the input. That creates different proteins, that creates different structure, which creates a different U, hopefully better than the one that was before. So this is a profoundly practical, not only on a macro scale, because if these were used to generate energy, then we don't, that's all there was, is free energy from this. This is an energy device. Then that changes everything.
Yeah.
And it certainly changes the health, because this is where everything goes wrong. You don't need any biochemical pathways, imaginary ribosomes, any of that stuff. It just goes out the window. You don't need viruses to explain anything. They're just electron microscope artifacts.
Absolutely. And
so you can see the whole thing, and then there's a whole nother world that opens up.